Thank you.
Enjoy
Thank
the
you.
stage.
Good morning. To learn about the power of discomfort, we need to solve a mystery. Why did Jensen Huang, the co-founder and CEO of NVIDIA, say, "I wish upon you ample doses of pain and suffering"? A first clue comes from Tim Ferriss, Ryan Holiday, and Naval Ravikant, Silicon Valley powerhouses. And they are obsessed with Stoic philosophy. Non-attachment, frugality, living a simple life. What are they on about? They are idolizing Seneca and Marcus Aurelius. And by the way, if you think about it, Seneca and Marcus Aurelius were some of the most powerful people of their time. And they were talking about suffering. And researchers all across the board are talking about the power, for instance, of vulnerability. Brené Brown tells us that from vulnerability stems creativity and innovation. So why do we need to feel bad to do good things? What is going on? Now, I like to talk about this, and I like to visualize it as the gap. And when you see a gap in your life, what do? You want to jump it. You want to just go to the edge and, like Super Mario, ping, jump to the other side. Or you think, I'm a smart human being, I'm going to build a bridge. Today, I want to tell you about diving into the gap. Why am I qualified to say and to talk about the gap? My name is Matteo Cassese. I'm a founder coach, but more importantly, I spend a lot of time in the gap. The first thing that brought me inside the gap is my love of computers. I started learning how to work a DOS PC when they were like terribly uncool. And as a kid, other kids were outside playing sports, etc. I was inside reading and learning how to program. And as my classmates were looking for a girlfriend, I was looking for a boyfriend. I don't know if you've spent as much time in the gap, if you found gaps in your life, but let's do a very simple experiment. If I'd ask you to check the time, what would you do? Check the time for me right now. So some of you will take their smartphone out, and the smartphone says something about you. Somebody will check their watch, maybe a smartwatch, maybe a no-brand watch, maybe a Swiss cheap watch, maybe a digital watch that says, I'm tough, maybe a luxury watch that says, I've made it. You check the time, but by checking the time, you solved an issue. You solved a conflict. And today we're going to talk a lot about this conflict, because this conflict is everywhere. The gap is the gap between your desires and what you're going to buy. Marketing, branding, advertising, all about creating gaps. Social media. There is a video of a kitten on a corridor, and it's a slippery floor, and the kitten is running, and it's running towards the camera. You have to know what happens next. Will she crash, or will she drift? She drifts, don't worry. But social media is based on this. And storytelling is all about creating gaps. Like last weekend, in cinemas, Tom Cruise reprised the role of Ethan Hunt in Mission Impossible 8. Mission Impossible 8. So there are 7 impossible missions already accomplished. We all know that Tom Cruise has to win. It's in his contract. Yet, the gap is big enough. We know that the bad guy loses. We know that Tom wins. But we are still suckers. We want to know how. It's not enough to know that there's going to be a happy ending. We want to know how it works. Now, I've shown you these boxers. You might have been identifying with the boxer standing up. In reality, we are the one that is falling to the ground. And that's a good thing, because there's a conflict going on inside of us all the time. On one side of the ring, we have Yoda, magical, in the force he believes, intuition. On the other side of the ring, representing rationality, we have Spock, long live and prosper. It's not logical, Captain. This split is happening inside of us. You remember the X-Files? How were the X-Files story told? Well, on one side, you had Fox Mulder. I want to believe, seeing aliens everywhere. On the other side, you had Dana Scully, a scientist, a doctor by trade. And that made them work. Now, this split inside of you, and especially if you are in tech, if you're an innovator, if you are an entrepreneur, if you like to do things, if you are a creator, is what I call the split between the philosopher and the opportunist. And most of the time, in most days, you will represent one of the two or both. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing that you're split in the middle. On one side, you like to delve in pure ideas. On the other side, you want to do things. You want to operate. On one side, you're intuitive. There is some place where songs come from. This is not me. This is Chris Martin from Coldplay. On the other side, you want absolutely to have a rational way of thinking through things. And sometimes things come from the inside. And sometimes, instead, you see things in the market, you see an opportunity in the market, or you get a result of a campaign, and you react based on that. Your thinking, sometimes it's fuzzy, sometimes it's linear, sometimes is unique, sometimes it's repeatable. And if you remember your Daniel Kahneman, sometimes you make decisions based on instinct. I like you. Sometimes you build a spreadsheet in your mind in order to make a decision. We can see this at the conference. Have you noticed that the stands offer you coffee, cheese, and more importantly, ice cream? To which of the two are they appealing when they offer you ice cream? Certainly not the opportunist. The opportunist will be out there networking. Instead, we make decisions. And we don't build a spreadsheet to choose if we're going to get chocolate or vanilla, right? Oftentimes, we act based on a decision of a philosopher, and sometimes we think like an opportunist, which is very, very tricky. And as a philosopher, we tend to change very slowly. We tend to repeat our patterns and try to go inside. As an opportunist, instead, we are ready to change. There's the results of the latest A/B test, and red is better than green. So go red. And this is not a judgment, but However, when it comes to seeing things, the philosopher is able to see the big picture. Instead, the opportunist is really great with the small details. Now, this split is happening inside and outside of you. So sometimes you're going to have a dialogue with your colleagues, maybe with your co-founder, and you're not going to understand each other. One is thinking about ideas, the other is thinking about operations. Sometimes you'll have this conflict inside of you. I've had it for myself when 4 years ago I thought, in order to fix my business, or coaching business, I needed to create systems. And I started living in this opportunist side, and it didn't work for me. It burned me out. And so we have this conflict. We have this conflict inside of us and outside of us. And it allows us to think quickly and slowly. It allows us to think intuitively and rationally. And so you would expect that we would build a society around crushing it. We build an economy around crushing it. You got to go somewhere? Don't worry. Give you an Uber, get you there, and I'll tell you exactly where the car is, exactly how many minutes it takes. And in case you want something, I'll get it delivered to you next day. Don't worry about it. Don't have any anxiety. You have some free time. I'll give you some stories. Some stories that are long stories. So you don't have any attention, so I'll give you 12 seasons. And sometimes you want to feel smart. I give you some podcasts. You can even become smarter while you're doing the dishes. This is amazing. And if you want something that is educational, but also entertaining and sponsored, why don't you go to YouTube? It's great. There's edutainment there. And if you have some time, but just a little bit of time, why don't you doom scroll so that you can finally spend the rest of your life on your phone? Don't do that. So let's put somebody much more valuable in the gap. Carl Jung, precisely. A month ago, I had this dream. And in this dream, I'm a public speaker. I know, boring. Okay, boring in life, boring asleep. There's this American bar, and there is a debate. There's two candidates. We'll call them the Democrat and the Republican. And they're giving a speech, and everybody gives their speech, and everybody gets a lot of applause. And then I'm invited to speak. I'm invited to come forward. And I give them a speech, and everybody is radiant. Everybody's super happy. And I don't speak against one or the other. I don't speak in favor of one or the other. I just propose a different perspective. Now, I've taken the habit of voice noting my dreams to Claude from Anthropic. I've always thought of Claude as the intellectual of language models, the one with the suit and tie. And I gave this simple prompt: act as my Jungian dream analyst. And in case it bullshits me in Jungian. It's fine. So I give it this dream, and it turns around with a barrage of text, like an intellectual does, and then says, and you know your speech, there's a typical example of Jung's transcendent function. Whew. No, that was before coffee. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? So the first thing is, what does transcend mean? And it simply means to get over things. So if I got pissed off and you'd see that I got pissed off at you, you would tell me to transcend. Get over it, Matteo. So the transcendent function is about getting over something. But what do we need to get over? The idea, the genius idea behind the transcendent function is that when we face a clash, let's say the clash of the philosopher and the opportunist, let's say the clash of thinking at the same time like a Democrat and a Republican, the brain has got to find an answer. But it will find a creative solution, a different way, as long as we hold the tension. And if there's one thing that I want you to take away from today, is hold the tension, what that means. So in this case, we have the option of going by car or by plane. And the transcendent function would say, we're swimming there. Now, how does that apply to our internal conflict? The third brain is what I call the transcendent function, because let's face it, it's too big of a word, is our ability to not just in some moments of the day think like a philosopher, in some moments of the day think like an opportunist or act as an opportunist. The third brain is the opportunity to be a philosopher and an opportunist, to be Yoda and Spock, to be Mulder and Scully at the same time, but as long as we hold the tension. So I think we're getting closer to understanding why Jensen Huang was saying, I wish upon you ample doses of pain and suffering, because I think we can be happy in the gap. We can be happy in discomfort because we know that by that, our brain will combine forces with our heart and figure out great things. However, I know you. You are human. And you look for shortcuts. I know that for a fact. I do it myself. And you will try to ikigai your way out of the gap. you will try to business model canvas your way out of the gap. Frameworks are great. However, if you apply a framework to an existential problem, the framework that poses as a pain reliever, a good thing, becomes a sleeping pill for your intuition. And you fall asleep and you don't get to access what's really powerful inside of you. So please don't use these frameworks. And I ask my clients, how does it feel in the gap? Because all I do is bring people into chaos so that they can find an intuit and realize how they can be Yoda and Spock at the same time. And Jen is going through a really important transition, moving away from her first business and starting her second, and says, it's like going down the rabbit hole with Alice. There's the gold there. And I asked Sophie, and Sophie already transitioned from a SaaS business she didn't believe in to something completely different, a movement, an impact-based company. And she says, opportunities, space, challenge, exciting, curiosity. Suddenly, the gap is all in the positive. This could be the power of discomfort. So today, I invite you to stop avoiding conflict. Invite conflict. Don't go to war, okay? But allow for that uncomfortable conversation with your co-founder or your colleague. Allow for that internal dialogue where you are both convinced of one thing and the other at the same time, and allow for that tension to exist. Recognize that there's much more to the left brain, right brain thing, that oftentimes we're both philosophers and opportunists. And that's a good thing. There's no good philosopher, bad opportunist, good opportunist, bad philosopher. It's a good thing that we can be both. But then our society, our speed of life invites us to chase all of the possible distractions each time we feel uncomfortable. And so please don't fill the gap. Allow for the tension. Make space for this tension, because this tension is the breakthrough. This tension is what makes you different from the language model. This tension is what makes you human. And this way, you'll be able to access your third brain. I would go so far as to say that, in my experience, the gap is the operating system of human existence. So I think I have provided you with enough clues to understand why Jensen Huang was wishing upon you ample doses of pain and suffering. And it allows me to invite and to wish upon you ample doses of pain and suffering. Thank you. One more thing before you go. We won't have a Q&A here. And so I thought, why don't I invite you to a Zoom call where we can hang out, I can finally hear from you, and we can discuss the power of discomfort in an online session next week. So please scan the QR code. It's going to be there for another second, but then it's going to go. Thank you so much.